Fantastic. And it looks like we're live. So there's always lots going on in the tech world and the things we do. We got Discovery X coming up this month. Anything else got going on in April, John? Even those will probably come out at the end of April or early May.
No, just gearing up for Futurist.
I'm going to ask you again at the end, but maybe if I plant the seed now, you'll remember a couple of things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about, and you had just mentioned as we were like going live that Chat GTP went down. Do you know how long it went down for?
No, I apparently it's intermittent, and apparently it's so the article that I saw was from the Independent on my phone this morning. I didn't do a deep dive into it, but I think it came out yesterday. So some issues yesterday. I don't know if there still are issues today, but it quoted saying the founder warned us of this kind of thing. So interesting, but.
All right. I'm curious. I'll have to read that article and maybe we'll talk about it next time because for the most part it's been working for me, except for some of the spaz out stuff I mentioned. This morning it was creating images for me just fine for podcast art and whatnot. So
and just a heads up, you might want to check the title of the live event on LinkedIn.
This event?
Yeah.
Is it well? If the title will be I see. It'll be the same everywhere. So
Okay.
Sisicon Scoop. Well, I'll have to. We'll edit it later, hopefully.
Okay.
Sorry for those of you who have no idea what. No, I don't think I can. Without stopping the stream and stuff.
Start and restart. Stop and restart.
I don't think so, because then we lose stuff. I can rename it after.
Okay.
So we'll be fine. All right. So let's jump into this. Welcome back to Sisicon Scoop. With me, as always, my co-host, John Irwin, funding expert and tech geek like myself.
Yeah.
His first article is Apple is readying its biggest push into health yet with its new AI doctor. What's going on here, John?
Yeah, so let me caveat this by skepticism with the things that Apple have been releasing lately with their quote unquote Apple Intelligence, their quote unquote improved Siri. This is just another line of I believe maybe over promising, under delivering, but we'll have to see. So they're calling it Project Mulberry. It centers on a completely redesigned health app, which features 2 AI agents. One is a virtual health coach, and the other is an AI doctor, quote unquote. So what they're saying that it's going to do is these systems are going to analyze data from iPhones, Apple Watches, third-party devices, and then they're going to generate personalized recommendations for fitness, nutrition, sleep, and chronic conditions like hypertension. The thing that the AI apparently does is that it leverages a few things. It leverages real-time camera analysis, so for workout form correction and feedback. It leverages multimodal data fusion, which combines heart rate, blood oxygen, sleep patterns, and dietary inputs, which the dietary inputs come through this new food tracking feature. I don't know. And also LLMs. So the LLMs are trained on medical data sets, which are curated by in-house physicians and external specialists in cardiology, nutrition, and mental health. So the thing that makes this seem kind of viable is that the AI training pipeline includes reinforcement learning from human feedback, so RLHF, where physicians validate outputs to ensure alignment with clinical best practices. So, yeah, we've got this cool thing. I'm skeptical that it's actually going to work. What do you think, Craig? You're not on the stage, by the way.
Thank you. Sorry, our internet went out here. I'm switched to my cell phone. It looks like it might be back up, but I'm not convinced. I don't want to switch over just yet. It's interesting. I'm always skeptical about these things for a number of reasons. One, I've experimented with a bunch of these, maybe not quite as much as you have. But it never tracks they never track my sleep properly.
No.
Which has always been an issue. So I take a step back and say, okay, what it says AI doctor, but what can it do? It's like it provides video content. It's an add-on to Fitness Plus, so you can film yourself doing exercises and it'll correct your form. Like, or show you what you're doing wrong, that kind of thing. Provide video content like for nutrition, sleep, cardiology, analyze your workout, monitor your chronic health conditions like your the regularity of your heart rate,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it 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 doesn't actually do doctory stuff as far as I can tell.
No. So yeah, they're calling it an AI doctor, but it's not really an AI doctor. So
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, so it does do AI doctor stuff in the background kind of thing, but it's not an AI doctor per se. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's tracking your heart rate, it's doing some stuff, but it's, if it integrates with your electronic healthcare records, if you want, it can offer insights about a bunch of things. It can help you schedule appointments and do some predictive analysis and things. But it can't diagnose medical conditions. It won't replace traditional healthcare solutions.
No.
It doesn't guarantee perfect, accurate health insights. So, and potential for AI to hallucinate. So I guess my biggest problem with this is I don't like the fact that they called it an AI doctor. It's more of a AI.
Yet again, another Apple fail, I think.
Yeah. It's AI healthcare assistant, advisor, keep
It's
up
an
the
AI health
workout.
app. It's an
like
AI fitness app. That's all it is. And who
Fitness
knows
Plus
if it's even AI?
Plus.
Like with Apple. So I've got this. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't. Oh yeah, the ring. So I've got a fitness tracker ring that I use. And it's got a bunch of sensors in it, and it tracks sleep horribly. And like anything that you've tried, it does not track sleep very well. It's pretty good at the heart rate and resting heart rate and all that sort of stuff. But I'm curious. Yeah, I'm based on Apple's fails on anything AI related. I'm skeptical about this even working.
Yeah, and so I take a step back as we go through it, and I say that's exactly the reason why Apple's doing this. I think they're not collecting your data unless you do sign up for all this stuff. And so if you sign up for Fitness Plus or this new AI doctor service, it's going to collect all this data and be able to feed its AI where it's way behind, right? Where it'll be able to do off-device stuff because you've signed up for this thing where typically it's all has to be on device because it's keeping your stuff private. I think this opens up, for those of you who don't follow, Apple's got is way behind on AI, and for a number of reasons. One, they don't like to share your data, take your data and aggregate it. So that's
which is great. I love it.
Which is great. And two, they're focused on device AI. So that is part of the whole reason. Like, because you can do the processing of what it is you're on device, you don't have to send it to servers. That means they don't have to keep it, right? That's why but at the same time, that means their AI processing power is severely limited. What they can do with it is severely limited. But now they can take steps like this and say, all right, you signed up for our healthcare app. We're going to monitor your heart rate, your exercise, everything you eat, everything you do, your form, your this, your that. And millions and millions of people will sign up for this because Apple will give it away for free for 6 months if you get a new device or whatever. And they're going to start collecting millions of data on this, which will only help feed their AI to become actually a better healthcare monitoring app. So I agree with you. At first, I don't trust is not a good word. I don't rely on this to actually do a lot more than what it does today. But at the same time, they're putting the heartbeat monitors in the headphones. So, and that's going to be able to do more and more. I don't know all the patent stuff related to the new headphones coming out. So this will be interesting to see. And in fact, actually, it's not just the new ones coming out. I think it's software to AirPod Pro 2s that you can go back to that has it.
Oh, cool.
The new
Okay.
Beats Pro has it. So those types of things are adding on. So we're getting to a better place where we can actually get to the quantified self. Remember, what was it, 20 years ago when everyone was tracking everything to become the quantified self, and you're tracking all that stuff, and it
No.
became a very big a thing, maybe not 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. But now we're starting to get to the places where we're tracking enough stuff
Okay.
that we can get to that point, right? Like our watches are monitoring our heart rate almost 24 hours a day. We're taking it every few minutes. We're monitoring what you eat. We're monitoring how you exercise. We're monitoring all these things semi-automatically. So now it becomes way easier to look at all these data and say, okay, how do I relate what I ate, what I did, what I drank to how badly I'm sleeping?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So I'll be curious. Like there are apps that kind of do this already. I'm curious to see what their nutritional whatever thing is that they're going to do. But yeah, I'm curious. Again, they're charging $10 a month. It seems like for this. So I'm yeah. Again,
it seems crazy. Like when you think about why build this stuff into the device and then charge for it.
exactly.
Hydration tracking. Well,
Yeah.
what does that mean exactly? Are you these are non invasive glucose monitoring, which is a game changer if they get that patent and they're allowed to your watch can monitor your
Absolutely.
glucose
Yeah.
levels. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They talk about hydration tracking, but I'm not sure exactly. Does that mean you have to tell it how much you're drinking? Because anything like that doesn't work very well, or does it track it based on something else? It's comprehensive sleep monitoring. That's great if it actually works. Activity, exercise metrics, heart rate variability. So there's some interesting stuff that it tracks. I just don't know if it's actually going to be worth the value. And you're right, it's an extra $10. So it's an extra $10 on top of, I think, Apple Fitness Plus.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you
I
got
don't know. I'm not. The only thing I like Apple is MacBook Pros. Everything else I can't stand. So you would know more than I would.
well, it's historically a lot of the functionality that's in Fitness Plus was just built into the apps and built
Okay.
into the system. But somehow they've taken that out and want to make you to pay a monthly fee for that now. So Um, eh, it is what it is. I don't find that Fitness Plus is great, because they're hyping up, the what do you call that? What was that bike that was so popular? That everyone
Peloton?
had. Yeah, they're pumping up that kind of experience where you have the group exercise, you've got the trainer, you got the person to follow, so you can pick your exercise routine. That'll give you the music and pump you up and all that kind of stuff, which is okay. Um, if you want that.
Yeah.
But some people just want some basic tracking functionalities for what they do so they can record it and put through all that stuff. And they don't want to have to pay all that extra because they don't care about video coaching. They don't care about all these other things. So
Yeah.
it's interesting where they divided those lines and
Yeah.
really taken some functionality away from other people. And if you're into that Peloton, the group thing, the challenges, that's great. But there's plenty of other apps out there like um, uh, I'm trying to remember the running ones and all that where they have the competitive stuff out there. So if you are involved in a group that of runners, you probably won't be using this because they all won't be using this. They'd be using some standard third-party app that this will report into. So you
Yeah.
could work out with your running group and compare your stats and that kind of stuff. So it's it's not for everyone, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the features aren't necessarily for everyone. And again, going back to this, I really don't like that they're calling this a AI doctor because,
Yeah.
but I like that we're getting more and more tracking.
Yes.
Um, if we can have alerts going out if something happens to someone automatically, like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up type alerts and stuff. Um, we're getting more and more to this. And if we get more and more tracking for people, especially as you get older, I forget, have I done this? Have I done that? You know, and I don't consider myself that old, but I'm definitely older. You definitely would like tools like this to, hey, you haven't exercised enough today, or you haven't done this, or you have, or what have you, to help you along those ways.
Yeah, the nudging. Yeah.
You know, the nudging to eat, the nudging to hydrate, the nudging to do whatever from that perspective. Yeah. I'm looking forward to a healthier society. I'm just not sure if everyone's willing to pay an extra $10 a month for it.
Yeah, I think that's a lot more expensive than I think it's more expensive than Aura. That I think Aura is $6 or $7 a month. And they have a dedicated, that's dedicated. They so who knows? Who knows if the price point is going to deliver on functionality and features. But based on their history with anything AI related, they've failed. So we'll have to see if this is their first win.
Yeah. So let us know what you think. Are you jumping on this bandwagon because you're all in on health stuff in Apple and how they're going? Or you favor some other platform, or neither of those things? Let us know. Leave comments below. All right. So Google recently completed a significant experiment exploring the relationship between news content and ad revenue. During early 2025, the tech giant conducted 2.5-month experiment where it removed news content from 1% of its EU users' search results, Discover feeds, and news platforms. So tell us what happened.
Yeah. So first off, scary that, again, these big conglomerates are doing things that we don't know of, and then they can just do whatever they want. So crazy. But so they conducted what's called a randomized control trial, and they did it across 8 European countries: Belgium, Croatia, Denmark, Greece, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, and Spain. And what they tried to do was measure the impact of news content on its ad revenue. So news content from over 13,000 European press domains were removed from Google Search, from Discover, and Google News for 1% of users over a 2.5-month period. So they evaluated a couple different metrics. So they evaluated the search daily active users, or DAUs, and that decreased by 0.8%, which indicates minimal user behavior change. Their search ad revenue showed no statistically significant decline. Their Discover revenue dropped by 2%, but Discover contributes modestly to overall revenue. I don't even know what Discover is. Do you know what Discover is? And combined ad revenue across Google properties remained flat. So the outcome essentially is that the news content plays a very negligible role in Google's ad-driven business model. So it seems like users are continuing to rely on the platform for non-news related queries, such as shopping or travel. Do you know what Discover is, by the way?
Discover is the Google feature that presents news content in user feeds.
Ah, okay. Should I know that?
It's just a thing.
Okay. So I'm not surprised. Yeah, Google Discover, like content feed with Google Search. Okay, cool. Oh, I think I use that on my phone, but maybe not. I don't know. Sorry.
I think it's used on you, not you use it. Let's just be clear. I think also Google is one of those things that Google Discover is something that they can they can pay you to put into your feed, so they can roll ads and whatnot through other people's feeds for other apps and whatnot. So it's a couple of ways of doing it. So anyway, their Discover platform advertising revenue dropped marginally, only 2%, you were saying.
Yeah.
Now let's take a step back, and this all sounds interesting, but let's understand the context.
Yes.
So from the European copyright directive has significantly changed how digital platform must handle news content, and the EUCD specifically mandates compensation for reuse of extended news previews, though it excludes short snippets and hyperlinks. So the regulatory landscape complicating these negotiations is intense. French authorities have imposed 250 million in fines on Google. German antitrust scrutiny continues to increase. Various EU member states interpret and enforce the directive differently. So Google has already established licensing agreements with approximately 4,400 EU publications under this framework. However, the company now claims that current negotiations may be overvalued by the publisher's contributions based on. So they say they're paying too much, basically.
Yeah.
And people are overvaluing this. So they do a study based on, hey, you guys are charging us too much. Canada, you want too much, because in Canada, Google agreed to pay 100 million payout despite having stronger legal mandates for compensation. So they're saying, wait a minute, you guys are charging us too much. Take a look at this research we did. Let's lower what we're paying. So, it seems to me it's a little more of a negotiation tactic versus a potential actual study. So I put it to you. Do you believe the results of this study?
I don't know. I think maybe it was too small of an experiment, because it only evaluated 1% of users in certain countries, and it excluded non-European news sources. Now I get that they were focusing on Europe because the EUCD, and publishers claiming that their content is critical to Google's business model. But that's happening everywhere in the world. That's happening in Australia. That's happening in Canada. I don't know about the US, but so I don't know if they just did like this really targeted experiment, and like, why would they pick those countries? Like, did they pick them at random? How did they pick those countries? Like, there's so many factors that come into play here that I just I'm skeptical about the outcome of this and their hypothesis, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Google's experiment can be viewed as both a genuine attempt to understand the content value and a calculated move to strengthen its negotiation position. So they are probably doing this to understand it, but they what do they say? They say figures never lie, but liars always figure.
Okay,
so,
I never heard that. That's cool. Yeah.
So you look at this, and from a corporate point of view, you take the data, you get rid of the negative data, and you spin it the way you want it to spin, and you publish it. Like we may have, tracked 100 different things, but we're only going to report on 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So that's why, they do this all the time when they're talking about revenue this quarter or profit. They dramatically cut costs, lay off a bunch of people, cancel projects. So all of a sudden their numbers look better, but that doesn't mean the company's doing well. So it just kind of, it's numbers game. So they're doing this to try and reduce their fiduciary and legal responsibility. But I also take a step back and say, we also see a huge drop off in faith in media in North America.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And so is that part of this, that people are going less and less to these news sources and care less and less about what the big news sources say, so that they're getting their news elsewhere?
That's what I was just going to say. Are they getting it from these, like, News Daddy, this guy News Daddy, or this guy
YouTube, TikTok,
YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, Instagram, so, and not searching through Google, because you're not really getting there's the trust. There's a huge lack of trust in the media, right? In traditional news sources, if that makes sense, as opposed to these other places. There's a lot of bias. Like, look, Jeff Bezos owns a few of these news sources, like all these big conglomerates own news sources. And so a lot of times they're just serving their agendas, and people are realizing that. So, yeah, there's a lot of mistrust, and that could come into play. Who knows how woke Europeans are compared to North Americans? Are they more woke? Are they less woke? Who knows? But yes, I agree that does come into play. And just to put it into perspective, Google, there's a lawsuit right now where Google owes a claim that Google owes UK publishers $13.6 billion for abusing its dominant position in online advertising markets. So that's what Google's trying to reduce.
Absolutely. Plus, we talked about that Google's probably going to lose Chrome. The decision will be made soon. And they're breaking up to try and break up their search monopoly, which is all part of, not necessarily part of this particular thing, but it's part of, hey, are they overreaching here? But we're also seeing that YouTube is the number watched thing, period. If you're talking about streaming now, it's YouTube outshines everything else, which is what it is. But when you start searching Google, and Google being YouTube, you see now all of the YouTube videos if you do a Google search. I don't even know if you use Google for search anymore. Videos are right near the top. So you're starting to see that you're getting news from YouTube versus other places as a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's too many factors on here. That just too many red flags on this for me. But I just can't trust their experiment.
So this experiment marks not an endpoint, but rather a new chapter in the ongoing negotiation between those who create news content and those who distribute it in the digital age. How this relationship develops will significantly influence the future of both journalism and information access. Whose side are you on? Do you think the news organizations need to be paid for this stuff, or do you think they're less and less valuable, and as a result, people are moving elsewhere and they're less valuable and less relevant? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Our current technology ecosystem faces multiple existential threats that could trigger widespread failure. Global supply chains, the complex networks that deliver components for everything from smartphones to servers, face increasing risks from economic disruptions and climate change impacts. When these chains break, our ability to manufacture and repair advanced technology crumbles. So today we're talking about what is the best coding platform in an apocalypse. So we're always talk about people talk about, in a zombie apocalypse, what would be in your go bag and whatnot. But I've not seen many geeks talk about, okay, what would be in their coding kit. So what's going on here, John? And why are we talking about it?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So this is not a new language, by the way. That we're talking about Forth. So Forth is a stack-oriented, high-level, interactive programming language and methodology. And it was originally designed for embedded systems and real-time applications because it's known for its simplicity and extensibility. So a little bit of history. Forth was designed by Charles H. Chuck Moore and was first used by other programmers in 1970. Okay. To get into a little bit more of the details, stack-based. So Forth operates primarily using a stack. So it's a data structure where elements are added and removed in a last in, first out, or LIFO manner. It's extensible because it's designed to be easily extended, allowing programmers to define new words or commands that combine existing ones, which create highly customized and a powerful language. It's also interactive, meaning you can type commands and see the results immediately, which make it suitable for rapid prototyping and experimentation. It was originally designed for embedded systems. So it was developed for programming small embedded control mini and microcomputers. And it's cool because it's directly executable. So because it's the stack-based abstract machine. So it's being used in quite a few applications, including spreadsheets, expert systems, multi-user databases, distributed real-time control systems, and more. So the thing with this is that it's got a couple things that make it advantageous. So it's got a dual stack structure. So it uses separate data and return stacks to enable efficient parameter passing and subroutine management. So this eliminates memory overhead from register allocation or complex calling conventions, right? So that hugely reduces its footprint. Traditional Forth implementations compile to indirect thread codes, or ITC, where each word points to its execution total, which allows a sub 20K binary versus 100 megabyte plus Rust Go runtimes. Huge difference. And it can be executed on 8-bit microcontrollers. So the other thing is a Forth kernel can be bootstrapped in less than 1 kilobyte of assembly. And they demonstrated this in Collapse OS's Z80 port. So this, just to contrast this with Linux, for all those Linux users out there, that's a 10 plus megabit minimum of assembly. So it's also got a self-hosting tool chain. So the compiler, the editor, and the debugger coexist in memory, which enable on-device code modification without any external tooling. So that's critical for scavenged hardware repair and things like that. So I know we hugely geeked into some geeky details here of code, and I apologize, but that's the only way to kind of explain it and compare. This is a really technical kind of dive into this, and I apologize. But it's crazy. The biggest drawback with this, with Forth, for those of you like, oh, why isn't this so popular, is its learning curve. It's very complex to learn. That's the biggest drawback, is what they're saying. But yeah, what do you think about this, Craig?
Well, there's a couple aspects here. There's Forth and then the Collapse OS, and we'll talk about Collapse OS in a minute. But I like Forth because, you know, the resource usage is minimal. The complexity to use it is low, and in a post-collapse applicability is excellent. It can be used in task critical and resource limited environments like greenhouse controllers for food production, power grid management systems, water purification monitoring, and basic medical equipment and interfaces, just as an example. And you mentioned it, but I just want to repeat that code can run directly in hardware without operating system overhead. So you don't need an operating system. So you can program these chips that'll run these machines and keep these things going. So Forth has always been great for this kind of stuff, but at the same time, it does these types of things, but wouldn't necessarily be great in a high-end graphical user interface environment.
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about this being a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. So and this talks to Collapse OS though, but it's Forth based on its structure, right? So global supply chains are disrupted. People need to rely on salvaged technology and their own skills to rebuild, which is why this is post-apocalyptic type technology.
Yeah, the creator of Collapse OS predicts a two-wave collapse model. The initial economic breakdown disrupting manufacturing, meaning, you know, chips and whatever aren't being made, and then a slow blackout as critical technologies fail without replacement parts. And this model suggests we need solutions that can bridge the gap between our current technology and a future with severely limited manufacturing capabilities. And the answer may lie in reviving older, simpler technologies that can be maintained with minimal resources. So Collapse OS directly addresses these limitations of scavenging 8-bit microcontrollers by enabling low resource salvaging through its innovative design. This specialized operating system was created with a post-collapse world in mind, where manufacturing capabilities for advanced microprocessors no longer exist. Specifically targeting the Z80 processor, commonly found in older electronics that might survive a collapse. This approach makes it possible to program salvage microcontrollers with minimal equipment, self-replicate across different hardware platforms, and bootstrap increasingly complex systems from simple components. The Dusk OS extension enhances Collapse OS by introducing a modern device compatibility and access to C code. This critical feature enables preservation of archived knowledge, allowing future users to execute legacy software containing valuable information. So it's pretty interesting. I like Collapse OS because its minimalist code base requires only kilobytes of memory, self-hosting capability, allowing the system to modify itself, cross compilation abilities to support various hardware targets, and documentation embedding within the system itself. So it's pretty excited, I will have to be taking a look at these because it's always we're always just one disaster away from the zombie apocalypse, and it'd be nice to be able to have information.
Yeah. So just for those of you who just a little geeky thing for those of you that are Star Wars fans. So Forth powered the Dystraflex camera system that they used in filming Star Wars, which was used for processing real-time motion control on a 1 megahertz PDP-11. And also during the Argentina's 2001 crisis, Forth kept industrial controllers running when Java and .NET updates became impossible. So just to kind of solidify a little bit more about its resilience, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a great article on TorontoStarts.com on this. It talks about apocalypse programming, preparing for the post-up, a collapse survival, the types of things you need, what to get, what to collect, ethical and philosophical implications of apocalypse programming, and a bunch of other stuff. So go check that out. We'd love to know what you think. Are you going to put something in your go bag for the end of the world when things power stops and you want to continue to use technology? Or are you thinking this is just another sci-fi thing that we just like to talk about? Give us your comments below. All right. Well, we might as well talk about Canada.
Yeah.
So Canada's had an exciting nuclear fusion, groundbreaking, world-breaking achievement where they've 600 million neutrons per second using magnetized target fusion. And this is a company called General Fusion. What's going on here, John?
Yeah, so this one was difficult for me to grasp my head around. So I apologize if I'm not too concise on this one, but I didn't get enough time to do a deep dive. So General Fusion, they have they've got this system called MTF, magnetized target fusion, which what you said. It employs what's called a liquid metal liner, which is typically lithium lead alloy, and that's compressed by synchronized pistons to collapse a spherical tokamak, which achieves 190x plasma density and 13x magnetic field strength. So some of the key innovations in this is that the mechanical compression. So instead of using laser NIF or magnetic confinement ITER, those are the two other technologies or two other reactors that are working throughout the world. MTF uses pistons to compress plasma adiabatically, which reaches 50 million degrees Celsius and generates 600 million neutrons per second, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's a critical metric for fusion efficiency. So the other thing that they achieved was plasma stability. So particle confinement time exceeded compression duration. So they sustained fusion conditions long enough for a net energy gain. And the neutron yield correlates with a triple product, which is density, temperature, confinement time, which surpassed thresholds seen in smaller tokamaks. The other thing is the fuel cycle. So it uses deuterium trillium DT fuel with lithium in the liner breeding tritium via a neutron capture. So it's a self-sustaining fuel cycle, which is absent in most laser-based systems. So did this come out of nowhere, Craig? Did we completely miss the mark on this one as far as coverage, or did we cover this and I just forget?
I don't think we covered this because the MTF is different, where it's using hydraulics. It's like it's taking something that was electronic and making mechanical. They're taking instead of the high-end superconducting magnets to use the force to keep the fusion from exploding, they're using hydraulics and to squeeze it, and they're getting this out of it, which is amazing. And they consistently, this isn't a one-off, they've been consistently able to repeat this. So it looks like, Canada might be taking a very interesting lead on this.
Yeah.
So it's all based on this Lawson Machine 26.
Okay.
Their next involves the Lawson Machine 26 prototype designed to scale up their MTF technology for practical energy production. So this innovative system focuses on controlled pulsed fusion rather than continuous reactions, offering several key advantages: reducing wear on reactor components, enables more efficient heat extraction, simplifies maintenance requirements, and promotes easier deployment in various settings. So that's their next stage. So they're talking about getting this out by 2030.
Yeah. So one thing that they have is a competitive edge, because the MTF, it avoids the $22 billion project complexity of ITER and NIF's energy inefficiency. They received $440 million in funding, and apparently it's a $3 ROI per public dollar. So that positions it ahead of rivals like Helion, which we covered, and the Commonwealth Fusion Systems, which we covered. So Helion's backed by Microsoft. I don't know who Commonwealth Fusion System is backed by, but you said 2030. So I think Helion is the one we covered. They said next year.
2028. Yeah. I think they said 2028, but maybe
2028.
It could be sooner, yeah.
Who knows? There is a race going on here, guys, and Canada is in it, and I love this.
Yeah, and some of the key differentiating, the absence of those high-powered lasers that require enormous amount of energy inputs. No need for complex, expensive superconducting magnets, which I mentioned, reduce technical barriers to scaling, and lower economic hurdles for commercialization. Because of what you're using, mechanics and hydraulics versus the lasers and the superconducting magnets to control the plasma.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about this because it's the clean energy we're looking for, zero nuclear waste, virtual limitless fuel supply from hydrogen isotopes, and consistent high capacity power generation regardless of weather conditions. It sounds like the ultimate solution to the world's energy problems, and we're getting closer and closer to it.
Yeah. So
this is.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, this I love that this came out. Well, not out of nowhere, but out of nowhere for me, because we've been covering a lot of nuclear fusion stuff. So the cool thing about this is the breakthrough signals a pivot from science project to grid-rated reactors, because they're using kind of known technology. So, but also, mixing known technologies to create this new output, which is really cool.
Definitely check out torontostarts.com. Check the link in the show notes for a great deep dive that has much more information than what we mentioned here. Love this technology, and I love where we're going. And I, especially that Canada is a leader in this field, where, I would say a couple of years ago, we didn't think we were in it at all. So let us know what you think. Is this a pipe dream? Fusion is magic and it's not happening, or we're getting closer and closer, and you're looking forward to a future where all our energy has come from fusion and we don't have energy limits like we do now.
Yeah.
So if you're a sci-fi fan, you've heard of a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is a totally encased sun or star that's encased completely around it, and civilizations and energy can live on the inside for all sorts of reasons. When I say energy can live, you collect solar panels and whatnot. collect solar. They have them on the inside of these things, so it's unlimited energy comes out of a Dyson sphere.
Yeah.
But the problems with a Dyson sphere is if you build that around a sun, then it kills everything in that galaxy because it's not getting the sun's energy. Along comes the Dyson swarm, and balancing energy harvesting with environmental consequences. What do you think about the Dyson swarm, John?
Yeah. So just to kind of give you guys some background on where the hell did this come from? So it began it was formalized by physicist Freeman Dyson in his 1960 paper Search for Artificial Stellar Sources of Infrared Radiation. So what in that paper, Dyson theorized that as technological civilizations advanced, their energy needs would exceed planetary resources. So that would necessitate large-scale energy harvesting from their host star. And so what he proposed was a system of structures orbiting the star to intercept and collect its energy, which he referred to as a biosphere. And so he envisioned a loose collection of swarm of objects orbiting the star rather than a solid shell due to mechanical and material challenges. So that's where that came from. And so the talk about this complete swarm beyond Earth's orbit traps outgoing infrared radiation. So that would reduce Earth's ability to cool, which essentially would create a greenhouse effect multiplier, which would raise temperatures by, get this, approximately 260 degrees Celsius or 140 Kelvin, which would be enough to vaporize oceans and sterilize the planet. So even partial swarms face huge trade-offs. And we can get into some of the numbers, but this is crazy. I can't believe that there's actually talk about this theory or this paper. I can't believe that this is actually a potential option. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is crazy when you're talking about potentially raising the Earth's temperature by approximately 140 Kelvin, which is what, 250 odd degrees?
260 degrees, yeah.
There you go. 50 odd, 260, close enough. We'll all be dead.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably worth noting that is because Earth would be inside the Dyson swarm. These reflectors, solar panels would be farther away from the sun than the Earth.
Yes.
Rather than closer to the sun than the Earth, which would generally result potentially in cooling.
Yeah.
And that is because the solar panels and generally couldn't withstand the heat and whatnot. At 2.13 astronomical units from the sun, they could capture roughly 4% of solar energy while causing temperature to increase only about 3K. This temperature shift, while significant, falls within the range of current climate predictions. The position of the swarm also matters significantly, as structures placed between the sun and the Earth would create artificial eclipses and cooling effects, while structures outside the orbit would reflect additional radiation towards the planet. So obviously they're talking about this. My thought would be, is there not a possibility to say put something like this that is permanently positioned on the other side of the sun?
Who knows? All I know is that I can't believe people are talking about this. I can't believe people are contemplating this. This is where stupidity comes in. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but this is where people who don't fully understand what the implications are of this are the ones that are behind this.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think it's an intellectual discussion, more so than a real one. And from our perspective, we could take it's can we not necessarily do this to our sun, but if we go to other galaxies that are lifeless at some point, Elon's talking about going to Mars. Is there a solution out there where we could build something that wouldn't necessarily destroy all life in that galaxy and still collect energy for us? So as a thought process, it's interesting.
Yeah.
However, them planning on doing it, I think it's just like Mr. Burns putting up that big umbrella to block the sun out, and you have to pay for it, right? So
exactly.
as soon as you start screwing with this kind of stuff, I get scared in a lot of different ways. Are we going to have to pay for sunlight now?
As soon as you start messing with Mother Nature and the natural processes, that's when things start going awry. And especially when you inject something this crazy, this over the top that could affect the planet that much, you're just an idiot.
So implications for extraterrestrial civilizations and SETI. So the construction of Dyson Swarm has significant impacts for how we search for extraterrestrial intelligence from the SETI program. A civilization building such a megastructure would produce detectable infrared signatures as energy they harvest is eventually re-radiated as heat. Astronomers have already begun searching for these telltale signatures around distant stars, looking for spectral anomalies that could indicate artificial structures. However, the climate risks associated with Dyson swarms suggest a possible solution to the Fermi paradox. Perhaps advanced civilizations recognize these environmental threats and deliberately avoid burning or building full-scale stellar megastructures. I'm not sure about this Fermi paradox. I probably have it here in this article, but I skipped over it when we were chatting.
Yeah.
Either way, I thought this was cool, right out of Star Trek. And are we as a civilization, 100 years, 1,000 years of being capable of even doing something like this?
Yeah.
Because we can't do it now. It's interesting.
No, it's going to take 1,000 years. Even that's at an accelerated timeline. So, yeah, so here's the thing. Based on the article as it currently sits, based on current technology, I think this is ridiculous. But there could be new technology that gets developed that could make this a feasible option. So I'm just saying, based on right now, it's the stupidest thing to even contemplate.
Well, the concept of a Dyson swarm represents both humanity's tremendous technological potential and our need for environmental wisdom. As we contemplate harnessing stellar scale energy, we face profound responsibility to ensure such advancement doesn't come at the cost of planetary habitability. So, what do you think? Do you think that some insane megalomaniac in the future is going to try to do this with our sun, or this is off the table, and any intelligent species this would be off the table for? We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Apparently, we're all nuclear all the time these days.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. So let's floating nuclear reactors. So now we're talking about putting nuclear reactors in the ocean. And this represents a groundbreaking advancement in energy technology, combining the power of nuclear energy with offshore deployment capabilities. These innovative structures are designed to generate electricity from nuclear reactions while floating on water bodies, addressing many challenges faced by traditional land-based nuclear plants. This scares me and excites me at the same time. John, what's happening?
Why does it scare you?
Because, what happens if something goes off in the water? What happens to the fish? What happens to just because it's not, near me doesn't mean it doesn't have a huge impact to the world and environment.
Okay, so I'll address that. They have a passive safety system. Okay, so if anything happens, any kind of emergency, apparently, and I'm going based off this article, the molten fuel or coolant, and the coolant will drain.
Salt, right?
Yeah. It drains into these critically safe tanks, which I don't know what it means, which solidifies it into an inert rock-like material. So it avoids any radioactive plumes, which addresses your fear and historical public fears of meltdowns. Now, are you less scared or still no? You still don't trust it?
Well, because it was molten salt, I wasn't necessarily worried about a meltdown specifically. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean there's not radiation coming off this for fish. I mean, anything that we normally put out, like oil rigs and whatnot, out in the ocean, I just kind of feel that they're not maintained at a same level as something onshore where you have the eye on it. That's kind of what I'm saying. And without looking at this, I don't know what possible contaminations they are through this whole process that could potentially harm life, sea, water, whatever. Just don't know. Now,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying. So, uh, preferably, I would like it, and I don't know why. It's just in my head that on land where it can be monitored, you have people walking around with these radiation detectors and looking at it, make sure everything's hunky dory all the time. Doesn't mean out at sea that doesn't happen. I just feel like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Because and I don't mean that people will be deliberately not diligent about this, but it's one of those things. If no one's checking on you, you're checking on stuff, and no one checking on you, eventually you stop checking on stuff because no one seems to care. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It just
which
is one of those.
you would think that with nuclear that would be a little bit different, because they're so strict about it compared to oil drilling. But there's a couple, like you said, and this might scare you. There's a couple material science challenges. So even though they're using molten salts, the molten salts are actually highly corrosive. So that requires an advanced nickel alloy, which is hastelloy N. I think that's pronounced correctly. And then some chemical inhibitors to extend the reactor lifespans beyond 12 years. The other thing is that if these are deployed out in the ocean, saltwater exposure is going to further accelerate corrosion. So that's going to necessitate sacrificial hull components to be replaced and different things like that. So those are the key things that still need to be kind of addressed and make sure that are covered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they mentioned reduce earthquake vulnerability through water-based positioning, which is, probably true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if there's deep water earthquake, don't they get huge waves and tsunamis out at sea? And what would that how would that have an effect on it? But
And one thing to note, Craig, about
yep.
your concern, there have been over 700 naval reactors that have operated since 1954 with zero meltdowns.
And again, I'm less worried about meltdowns because modern nuclear is more control and less understanding what other chemicals, whatever radiation leaks that would affect the local environment. And when you say nuclear, I can't remember how you phrased it. Are you talking about power plants and subs and whatnot? Because that's a completely different story.
Yeah, they're talking about U.S. carriers, submarines. So
yeah, I mean, your nuclear power is your energy. You have a full-on crew that's driving you around. If something's not working,
Yeah, but there has to be a full-on crew working on these reactors.
I guess I just, I have a picture of 3 people from Arkansas running this thing and whatever. Obviously not. We have regulations and all that stuff, but interesting to see this stuff. I think saltwater does do a lot to challenge this.
Yeah.
But we're covered. The world is covered with water, and it's not necessarily a bad idea to think about how can we start using that space better without impacting the climate and the environment and that are natural to it.
Yeah.
And we all need energy. So I'm curious about this and whether this is the solution or some of the fusion reactors we were just talking about. Molten salt is definitely moving in the right direction from everything we've seen.
Yeah.
And they're currently already targeting island communities, remote coastal sediments in Arctic regions, mining and resource extraction operations in isolate. So any place where they isolated. and strategic deployments with military, forward operation bases, naval fleet, strategic power projections, rapid deployment during humanitarian missions. So I guess this is very similar to dropping off one of those tractor trailer like nuclear reactors in a place so it can power it.
Yeah. Except at sea.
Yes.
Yeah. Or on a river, or in the or in a lake. Like, it doesn't have to be on seawater. We can have it moored in a lake or in a river or whatever.
Yeah. So it's, now this gives piracy a whole different kind of discussion. So this would have to be militarily controlled and all that stuff. But the concept is cool. Having zero carbon power plants that you can haul across the ocean and use wherever you want, immunity to rising sea levels, adapting to changing weather conditions, reduce freshwater requirements, potential rapid deployment. It sounds great.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing these. Let us know what you think. Are we going to see molten salt floating reactors anytime soon here in North America, or is this more of a Russian European thing? And we'll have to see what happens. I'm curious to see where we're going. We're talking about fusion. We're talking about these molten salt reactors. Is the world going to adopt one solution, or are we going to have plenty of different ones? I'd be curious to see, because fusion seems to be repeatable forever versus, say, nuclear, where you're using up potential nuclear resources. Yeah. Love to hear your thoughts. Let us know. So what do you got going on, John?
Oh, nothing really. I've got some concerts and I'm not too much fun, except for obviously investor drinks, maybe a Tech TO event, an F Up Nights Toronto event. That's in April, so I don't know when this is coming out. I think he said end of April, so might miss that. But and obviously startup drinks. How about you?
Yeah, obviously every month there's startup drinks. Assuming this comes out at end of April, we're talking about May. We'll have a Flowgrammer event talking about AI and automation at middle of May, and we're going to have a startup investor drinks, which is a consensus after party. So join us for that. For everything else, check out torontostarts.com. All the resources are there. Check out flowgrammer.ca if you want to automate, use AI and automation in your business and learn how. And check out startupcoach.ca for more details if you're stuck in your business and you want some help. And John, how do they reach out to you if they're looking for non-dilutive funding?
Find me on LinkedIn, John Irwin. Feel free to reach out. I think I've got a link right on my LinkedIn to book some time. So yeah, feel free to do that.
And thanks everyone for listening and watching.
Thanks everyone.